Hi, this is Dave Birkett, Michigan football beat writer for AnnArbor.com, back with my colleague Mike Rothstein to wrap up Michigan's disappointing season. Mike, Michigan, last place in the Big Ten, 5-7, another losing record. I don't get to go to Arizona after all in that bowl game that I wanted. What happened? How did things fall apart after that 4-0 start?
Well, how long do we have, man? I mean, seriously, we could talk about that for hours. What it is it really started, I mean, I've written about this before and I've said this before on the radio, is that I think it really started with the interception at Michigan State. I really think it did, because that was the first time Tate Forcier started to get his confidence out a little bit. If you remember him after the game, he looked somewhat shaken, like, oh, that'll never happen again. You remember that back then? And then the next week at Iowa, when they pull Tate and they start, and Rich makes an odd coaching move, still say that that was a really weird coaching move, and then from there, I mean, it just spiraled out of control. Think about it. If they didn't play Delaware State, they wouldn't have won a game after September.
It would have been brutal. No, I think I can excuse them losing at Michigan State, losing at Iowa. Two tough games, even though they were right in both those games.
Oh, I'm not saying they're bad losses. I'm just saying things that happened at the end of those games contributed to what happened, I think, at the end of the year.
Especially the Iowa game. You mentioned it, Tate getting pulled, Denard Robinson playing that last series kind of inexplicably, if you ask me. And then Illinois and Purdue, just the two most inexcusable losses that they had this year. You win those two games, it's a different sort of season. We're kind of looking at it like, you know what, 6-6, 7-5. It's where everybody thought Michigan would be. Instead, we're kind of asking questions. What does the future hold for Rich Rodriguez? What does the future hold for the program? And I guess, I think looks like Rich will be back, but you know, who knows what the future holds?
No, I agree. One thing that's really bothered me throughout this season, and we've talked about it more privately, but Greg Doyle wrote about it this week, is that Rich seems to blame a lot of people. You know, he keeps mentioning the patience issue. He keeps mentioning the recruiting classes issue. He keeps mentioning some other things as well. You know, going from the Zoltan Mesko fake punt way back when to a couple other things throughout the year, and it seems odd that he keeps doing that. He never says it's my fault.
Well, I don't totally fault Rich on some of that. I mean, I think, look, some of the decisions that he made play into the whole, cupboards being bare thing too. You know, no Ryan Mallett, no Justin Bourne, some of these guys. There were some talent there. Obviously, it got run off, or it ran off on its own. But there is a lack of talent on defense. And then beyond that, there are some factions working against Rich, or that have worked against Rich at Michigan. But still, it's inexcusable to win just 5 games. When you're playing in the mediocre Big Ten, finish 1-7, tied for last in the conference. Rich needs to have a major turnaround next year, I think, in order to get a year 4 at Michigan.
I would agree. I would say 8 wins is probably the low number there. I mean, especially if you look at their non-conference schedule, it isn't exactly daunting. Notre Dame's going to have a new head coach, barring some inexplicable change of heart there. But I mean, even the way Charlie Weiss is talking, it sounds like that's going to happen. Then they play UMass, which is a 1AA FCS school, and then they play a couple teams from the MAC. And you should win 3 of those games, if not 4 of those games. So you're in the same situation, 4-0 again, going into Big Ten play, and that's where it's going to matter.
Maybe he wins 10 and sticks it to Michigan and leaves and goes somewhere warm, somewhere down south. I can see that happening too.
Hey man, it gets cold here, although it's kind of nice out right now.
Yeah. All right, we'll be up here on AnnArbor.com all basketball season to talk Michigan hoops. For Mike Rothstein, I'm Dave Birkett, and we'll see you again this winter.
Remember, only a few months till spring football.